Welcome. Hello, Periscope. Get situated here. There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for joining me as well. I am your girl, Diva Dubé. And I don't want to stay, a long time before you because I know it's the holiday season and, many people are doing all kinds of preparations. Hi, Bunchy. Thanks for joining. Um, People are doing all kinds of preparations, and so I know we don't have a lot of time to spend. But I just had a message. Hi, how are you? Um, I just had a message that I wanted to share with you guys um, regarding me, my childhood, just growing up in general, and how it relates to you or possibly people that you know. So, first of all, I'm Diva Dubé, and I basically help women to heal from the hurt and the pain of their past. Now, how can I do this? Because I've had a lot of hurt and pain in my past. So it all started, really, it started when I was in my mom's womb. Um, I had experienced my first rejection in the womb because when my mom got pregnant with me, my parents were already in the process of trying to separate and divorce. And because of that, my dad really didn't care to have a child. And so that was the first instance of rejection that I ever experienced was in the womb. And how many of you, sometimes people don't really know it, but it does affect a child. They've done studies where, they'll have a child who is held and given love, as opposed to a child that hasn't. And the child that is wanted and loved tends to fare better in life than the ones who hadn't. And so it can even affect you. Rejection can even affect you in your mom's womb. So that was my first experience with it. So I had a really rocky start to my life. Um, you know, there was a lot going on between my parents, and so they eventually did divorce. And so in my childhood, I really did not see my dad. I would see him every once in a while, and it really was like every few years. It was nothing consistent. I told you guys a story about, since Christmas is coming up, I told you guys a story about one time I saw my dad and he had a wristwatch, but the straps were gone. And so he had to like take the watch out of his pocket to see what time it was. And I had some bonds or something. I don't know why I had so much money as a little girl. But I cashed in these bonds, and at Christmas time, I went downtown to the jewelry store and I bought him a Movado watch. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Movado. I mean, I'm sure you guys can afford it now, but as a little girl, that was a lot of money to be spending on someone who was never there. And of course, everyone around me was like, what in the world are you doing? But that was my way of trying to get that love and validation from my dad, because I really never really saw him. And so when I did see him, I never really felt the love. I never felt the validation. In fact, you all see I'm kind of a chunky girl, and I was the same when I was growing up, but my dad was like on this health craze. And so every time I would see him, which was not often, it was always something like, you need to lose weight. And, so I never really got that validation that I felt like, a daddy's girl should have gotten. And so regardless to say, bought the watch for my dad, and 3 years. Actually, it was over 3 years. 3 years before I ever saw him again. 3 years before I ever saw him again to even give him the watch that I had bought him. And so I learned very young that, that feeling of rejection, the feeling of neglect and abandonment. And I experienced a lot of pain, not just the rocky start, but throughout my life. How many of you know that when you're rejected, a lot of times you project the rejection on other people, and then it's just a big cycle of rejection. And so you tend to attract that to yourself as well. And so just experienced quite a bit of rejection throughout my childhood. Even growing up, every decision that I ever made was always based on trying to get that love and validation that I didn't get from my dad. And so, as you can imagine, I fell into, promiscuity. I fell into lots of stuff. But I was always really just seeking that love and validation that, that open void that my dad had left. And so, as I grew up, I began to seek healing. You can go back and watch some of my other scopes. I talk a lot about, what was the first step in me healing. And so after I realized that I had some, I like to call daddy issues, I did start, seeking healing for those issues. And so, of course, now, they say hurt people, and healed people heal people. And so now I'm able to help other women to overcome their pain and rejection, and not just from daddy issues. I mean, I've had it all. I've gone through divorce, just all kinds of stuff. And so my main thing is to help women heal. Now, my specialty, what I really enjoy talking about, is overcoming daddy issues. That is something that's very prevalent in our society. It affects women, it affects men, it affects everyone. And so, and a lot of times when you're affected by fatherlessness, it tends to affect, like I told you, it tends to affect all of the decisions that you make in life. And so that was me throughout life. A rocky start, a mountain of pain. And then I've always felt like I was on this quest to create a better life for myself. Throughout my teenage years, throughout, my young adult years. And, but the thing is that I was always really, in that quest, I was really kind of choosing the wrong way to go about, healing the pain. And so what I want to talk to you about is just some of the ways that I went about it, and some of the ways that other people, maybe you or someone else may go about trying to accomplish that quest of, having a better life for yourself. You've been through so much pain, and you just want a better life for yourself. But a lot of times, if you don't do it properly, if you don't follow the prescribed method, you will end up in a worse situation. A lot of times bitterness can set in, and a lot of times we think we're healed, and really we're just, we've kind of taken on a hardened type of heart. We really kind of try to forget the pain. And so really is very important for us to do it in a prescribed way so that we will come out on top. And we will know, I like how people say, that you know that you're healed, and that you're free, and that you're, everything good. Because us people who deal with daddy issues, we tend to cover up stuff, and we tend to put on a good face and make it seem like we're okay, make it seem like we're healed. But if you don't get to the root and get to the bottom of everything, you'll end up in a worse place than where you started. And so just want to tell you, I have a working definition of daddy issues. I came up with this definition. It's a term that a lot of people use in the United States, but people abroad really don't really know what we're talking about. So I did come up with a working definition. This is my definition. You're not going to find it in Webster's, but I had to because actually I have a book coming out in January, And so I wanted to make sure that people understand completely what I'm talking about when I talk about daddy issues. So, number one, daddy issues is basically any negative effect of fatherlessness. Now, when I say fatherlessness, this comes in many forms. I'm not, so fatherlessness can be by choice. Either dad chose not to be there. It could also be maybe because dad passed away. It could also be, because of an illness. Sometimes if dad is ill, he's ill-equipped to care for himself, really, and then, to care for his children is another story. And so that's also fatherlessness. Also, a lot of people don't know that if your dad, sometimes if you grew up in a home with your dad, you can still have daddy issues. So if your dad was there physically, but maybe he wasn't there emotionally, or maybe, dad was, had some substance abuse issues, or maybe dad, was just really just working hard to take care of the family. And so when he got home, he didn't really want to do much playing with the children or whatever. He wanted to, put his feet up and vegetate on television. That could be a physical presence of dad, but not necessarily an emotional presence of dad. And so that's all included in daddy issues. So any negative effect of fatherlessness. Now, daddy issues can come in three things. It causes three things. It causes behaviors. It causes symptoms. Just like when you're ill, you have symptoms that says that something on the inside is not right. And then also it causes readjustments to behaviors. Okay. I don't want to get really, really deep into it. I have a lot of scopes in the past. You can go back and check it out, where I really define those three categories: the behaviors, the adjustments to behaviors, and the readjustments to behaviors. Let me just a quick example of that. A readjustment to behavior. For me, when I was younger, I tended to withdraw myself from other people. That was a readjustment to behavior. So because of the fatherlessness, I felt pain and rejection, and I didn't want to experience that type of pain again. So I tended to withdraw myself from other people. So withdrawal could be a readjustment to behavior. I told you that, I sought love and validation in men and all kinds of stuff. And so that's a readjustment to behavior. A readjustment to behavior can also be things that you do to try to fill the void that dad left. So it's a complex definition, but really it's not, really hard to understand. But I had to come up with that definition to make sure that people know and are on the same page with me when I'm talking about daddy issues. And so, because of rejection, and I talk a lot about daddy issues, but really daddy issues is just a big way of saying rejection, neglect, abuse, abandonment. And so most people, when they experience trauma, whether it's divorce, whether it's fatherlessness, whether it's, an accident, a car accident, any kind of trauma, painful experiences in life, usually people go through a death. That's a trauma, a death of a loved one. So people usually go through the stages of grief. And so, usually when someone dies, they tell you, allow yourself to grieve. And they tell you about the 5 stages of grief. The first is denial. And then, it's so many stages. You can Google it. What usually happens with people who experience rejection, they usually go through the same types of, the same stages. Which is really interesting. It's a grieving, it's a process that they have to go through. And so just as if someone passed away, a close loved one passed away, when you experience rejection, you have to go through those stages in order to have the real healing. If you skip the stages, I remember when I was going through a divorce, and I had to go through. You had to go through these parenting classes with your, each person had to go through the parenting classes, and they talked about it. A divorce, you go through the same stages in divorce as if someone has died. Welcome 565. Thank you for joining me. First time on Periscope. Whoop whoop. And so you go through those same stages as if the person has died. And it's important to do that, because if you skip a stage, a lot of times, this is why we see so many bitter people, is because they've skipped the stages of grief. You have to allow yourself to grieve. Otherwise, bitterness, the root of bitterness, all those things start to set in, and then we're broken people. And so the world is full of broken people, but what we need is healed people, because healed people heal people, hurt people hurt people, and healed people heal people. What usually happens when you experience trauma is that you stop growing, and you really kind of mentally become the same age as you were when you experienced the trauma. I know lots of people who work with children, who enter the foster care system, and they talk a lot about this. When a child experiences whatever trauma that happened for them to have to enter the foster care system, their mentality tends to stay at that age of onset of the trauma. And so it even happens for us adults. A lot of times we experience the rejection when we were young, and so it's hard for us to grow until we confront and get to the root of the issue and confront it and completely heal from it. Then our true growth can start. I had I did have a stepdad in the picture. I know I talk a lot about daddy issues, and I really don't talk a lot about my stepdad. He came in later in life, but so a lot of times when some of my nieces and nephews were growing up, when they would get sick, his remedy for everything was Vicks. Some of you might know, the older people, it's just, that's what you do. You got a headache, you put some Vicks on it. Whatever was ailing you, you use Vicks. And so, but that was really his self-prescribed. And a lot of the older people, it's really kind of like something passed down from generation to generation. A lot of the older people passed that down and taught their kids to do that. But what it was self-prescribed. It wasn't anything the doctor told him to do. It was self-prescribed. And, there are many reasons for that, maybe not being able to afford the doctor or whatever, access to doctor or healthcare or whatever. But the thing about it was self-prescribed. And so a lot of times when we are sick, when we have emotional pain, when we have hurts from the past, we tend to self-prescribe remedies to heal or to overcome or to simply cope with our pain or our rejection or our abandonment or abuse or whatever you want to call it. And so what I'm going to give you the most common self-prescribed remedies for rejection. I did a lot of them, and you might know someone who does or did some as well. So the first one, these are the most common remedies for rejection. The first one is turning to false comforts. So I told you I spent a lot of time in every decision I made. It was seeking love, seeking a validation. And so I turned to those false comforts. One false comfort can be alcohol. We hear the phrase, drown in your sorrows. And a lot of times, unfortunately, because we have, pain or sorrow, the alcohol tends to have a numbing effect, and it helps people to be able to forget about the pain that they've experienced. But the thing about the alcohol is that it doesn't take the pain away. It doesn't heal the pain. It just simply numbs you to the pain. But once you're finished with the alcohol, once it's out of your system, the pain is still there. And so you're going to have to keep applying it, or keep prescribing it to yourself in order to have a continuous, forgetting of the pain. And, that's a problem. We don't want to become, dependent on substances. Another example of turning to false comforts could be sexual gratification. Some people fall into like masturbation, or seeking like I was telling you, seeking love, seeking attention, seeking things in the arms of people. What I found for myself is that never satisfied that void that my dad left open. It was the wound that he left. Another example would be food. I'm a chunky girl. I'm not going to talk on that. But another example is food. Sometimes people overeat. It's a comfort. It helps them to forget. It becomes their friend. Shopping. I know people who are like shopaholics, and it brings a level of comfort to them. It helps them to forget the pain that they're experiencing. Drugs, all kinds of substances. So the first one is turning to false comforts. Now, those are false comforts. Everything about daddy issues, everything about rejection will give you a false sense of hope. It will give you a false personality. It will give you a false identity. And you'll start becoming what you really aren't, what you really weren't created to be. But it's false. The second self-prescribed remedy for rejection or daddy issues, or, you can always insert whatever your issue is, divorce issues, daddy issues, whatever, family issues. The second one is a snail syndrome. And I told you a lot of times when I was younger, I would withdraw myself from people. That was the snail syndrome. And so what it is basically when a snail senses danger, it retracts, it goes into its shell. And so sometimes when we experience pain, we don't want to experience the pain again. And that's what I was talking about with the readjustments to our behavior. When we don't want to feel the pain again, we do things so that we don't have to feel the pain again. And becoming a shell or retracting into your shell is one of them. I know nowadays there's so many ways that a person can retract into their shell. It's not just becoming a hermit like, back in the day. Some people become bookworms, where they just become lost in books and nothing else really matters. The outside world doesn't matter to them because that's their escape, that's their comfort, and that's their way of not being hurt by actual people. Now we've got social media. Social media is a big thing. A lot of people, you can deal with social media, but you don't have to deal with the actual people. And so some people are in that shell, and they just, their only contact to the outside world is through the social media, but it's really a false sense of everything. They're not your real friends. A lot of times on Facebook and whatnot, people, are happy to say they have, 2,000 friends, but how many of them are actually friends that you can call on when you're, going through situations? How many of them pray for you? How many of them, are your real friends? And so, social media is a big way that people are able to retract and get in their shell. And it also kind of, what I've noticed is that sometimes when we're so into social media, we become socially awkward. And that's just my little side note. It has nothing to do with rejection, but we become socially awkward. It's like we forget, we have forgotten, or we never, the, what are the millennials, it's like they don't even really know how to, interact with people. When I was younger, we would go outside and play. You play with everybody in the neighborhood, and you learned how to interact. But nowadays, the young people, it's like the video games, the social media, the Snapchat, and all that. It's like they become socially awkward and they don't know how to relate to actual human beings. It's sad. It's very sad. And so that's a part of, retracting into your shell. When you're hurt, sometimes you don't want to deal with people and you just become this modern day hermit on social media. Sometimes men have their man cave as a way to, retract and, feel like they're, don't get me wrong. It's nothing wrong with having a man cave. But sometimes for some people who've experienced rejection, it's a way for them to go into their shell so that they are not hurt by the, hurt anymore by rejection. Sometimes people, it's okay to work over, but sometimes people don't want to go home because there's rejection there. And so they spend long hours at work. I'm just giving you guys a few examples. I mean, there's so many things. TV addicts, escaping into a TV world. And that's another way of withdrawing and becoming, like a snail in your shell. And it's all because of rejection. So that's the second self-prescribed remedy for rejection. We tend to prescribe things so that we can feel or not feel the pain of rejection. But as you're seeing, it's really a false sense of security. So the first one was turning to false comfort. I gave examples of food, sexual gratification, shopping, alcohol. The second one was the snail syndrome. And so basically that is just withdrawing within yourself so that you don't, experience pain. I'm an introvert, and I know that you probably can't tell, which is really surprising. I'm so much an introvert, and it's really what I learned as I started, going through the healing process is that was really kind of a personality I took on myself because of the rejection. Now, but you couldn't tell because I'm talking. But, in healing comes a lot of things. There's no way in my, real, shy, introverted self would I be able to, be talking to strangers and sharing my life story. But praise God, there's healing. There was healing for me, and there's healing for anyone else who wants to receive it. All right, so the third self-prescribed remedy for rejection that people tend to, this is the most common ones that people tend to do, is they have what's called the damaged emotion syndrome. Now, this entails a lot, okay? And what I was thinking about is just maybe come back in the next over the next 3 days and just go through each one of those in detail, because the damaged emotion syndrome entails a lot. Let me just give you a couple examples. Some people become engrossed in academia, and so they want to just absorb all the knowledge and appear and be smart. It gives them something to feel good about, which it's okay to feel good about it. But it's really, remember we talked about the quest. It's really a quest to validate or to have some void filled that wasn't filled when we were a child. I was about to say that you are healed from that situation. That's why you can speak about it. That's true. Is it Bunchy? Am I saying that right, Bunchy? Just let me know. That's so true. And like I said, healed people heal people. Um, and so, yeah, that's why I can talk about. Yes, okay. So, Bunchy, thank you so much, Bunchy, for joining me. And look, guys, always feel free to comment in the comment box. I'm on here for a purpose, but I don't want to, just talk to myself. You've been there. Yeah, it's real, isn't it? It's very, very real. And a lot of times we don't even realize that every single decision that we make is based on something. And I always say, this is my saying, everything starts somewhere. And usually it's in our childhood. And a lot of times we think we're bad people. We think, why can't I get over this thing? Why do I do this bad thing or whatever? But it starts somewhere, and it's real. It's real. And a lot of times it is because of rejection, abandonment, daddy issues, whatever you want to call it. It's a big way of saying rejection. It's only when you get past you can be open to share. That's true. And there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. And so being able to share it actually also helps us to overcome as well. Of course, we got to do the soul work and we got to, seek healing and everything. But a part of our overcoming is being able to, is telling it. You got to tell it, So yeah, I was thinking about coming back, over the next 3 days and going more into depth about the emotional, the damaged emotion syndrome, because there's a lot to it. And then I thought, well, maybe if I'm going to do that one, then I need to, go in depth on the other ones, because there's much that I'm not saying. It's so, guys, this is so much information. I just really each day try to break it into little pieces and make it, so that people can, because the whole purpose is that people become healed. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. I deal mostly with women, but doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, black or white, Asian, African, whatever. Rejection is rejection, and it all affects us in negative ways. Another example of the damaged emotion would be popularity. Becoming like the life of the party. Just being a class clown, being popular at any cost. And really, like I said, it's really a false personality. You've taken that on because of the damaged emotions. And so it really affects everything that you do. I know a lot of times, I'm a former school teacher. I forgot to tell you guys that. I'm a former school teacher, almost 20 years teaching. And so I've seen my fair share of class clowns. And what happens is that damaged emotion syndrome. A lot of times we just think, oh, Johnny's just, Johnny's being, whatever. But everything starts somewhere. And a lot of times that getting laughs and getting, negative attention is because of rejection. And so when you see this in people, I see it so much, guys. When you see this in people, it is so easy for us to say Johnny is a bad person or Johnny is whatever. But I, had started asking God to help me to see people like you see them, because it really gives it a different perspective. It's not just that person loves attention. They're seeking attention for a reason. And so we're able to kind of be more sensitive to what they need, instead of just, casting them out and, so yeah. What I think I'm going to come back in the next 3 days and just do, talk more about the damaged emotion, because there's a lot to it. But what I wanted to let you guys know, I am doing a webinar. This is what I do. I'm doing a webinar. It's free. The only thing is that you have to register because the space is very limited. In this webinar, I'm going to be sharing my strategy, my healing strategy, how I overcame my own personal daddy issues. Now, it's not for everyone, but you can apply your, like I said, your whatever issues, your divorce issues, or your, loneliness issues, or your whatever, because the ultimate thing is that we are healed. And so this is going to be Monday, the Monday after Christmas, Monday the 26th. It's going to be at 8 p.m. I'm in Central Standard Time, USA. And so to register, you can go to my website, divadube.com. The link is in the bio. By the way, guys, if you're not already following me, please follow me. So go to the bio when I'm done, and click in the link and go ahead and sign up for my monthly training. So I'm going to be giving my blueprint, my strategy of how I actually overcame my own personal daddy issues. If it's not for you, pass the word along, because I can guarantee you know someone who is suffering from daddy issues, from divorce issues, from rejection, from neglect, abuse, whatever. And so the ultimate thing is that people are healed. So if it's not for you, I do understand, because I am not for everyone. But please do go to divadube.com and register. It'll be Monday, December 26th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. There will be a question and answer session at the end. I always take questions where you can ask me anything. And so, we'll have a good time. Do you guys have any questions for me? Any comments? Anything you want to share? Let's talk. Any questions? Any comments? Where you guys coming from? Where you watching from? Okay, if not, I don't want to sit staring at you, and I know you don't want to sit staring at me. Any questions, comments, criticisms? I'll take it. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off of here if there are no questions. I do so very much appreciate you. Thank you for sticking with me. Bunchy, thank you for sticking with me. And I will see you guys tomorrow. If you're not already following me, please go ahead and follow me on here. Also, you can catch me on Instagram at divadube as well. And then go to my website, sign up to come for the webinar. And that's divadube.com. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off of here. Thank you for joining. Oh, share the broadcast. You have been great delivering, and I have to pray others would follow. Yeah, that's the thing, Bunchy, is a lot of times we don't know what we need. We want to follow the things that are, hey. But it's my goal is to make people aware. Just like I was talking about, you can have grown up with your dad and still have daddy issues. Not a lot of people know that, so it's my goal to make people aware, and not only just make people aware, but help them to get to the root of their personality flaws, which is most of the time daddy issues or rejection issues, and to see people healed. That's my desire. So, yeah, pass it along. Share this broadcast with your followers. Share it on Facebook. Let's help to spread this message. That is part of the ministry that God used. So what do you do, Bunchy? What ministry is that? To heal or help? It's cut off. To help. Okay. Okay, to help. So do you help work with men or everyone, or what area? What's your expertise, Bunchy? Children and elderly. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. You have a good heart. I can tell that you have a good heart to work with the children, to work with the elderly. Those are the people. Sometimes society, the elderly, society sometimes kind of cast them off. It's like, we're finished with you. Go sit down somewhere. And so to work with them, it shows me, it tells me you have a really good heart. People used to say that about me. I'm not bragging or boasting, but they used to say that about me because I was a special education teacher. And yeah, the forgotten ones, that's it. And I think one of the things that sent me into the special education field is I don't like to see people alienated. I never wanted to see people, like you said, forgotten. I hated it. I remember when I was in high school, there were people that were like outcasts. And here I would go and tell them, hey, come sit with us, There's people like outcasts, but I hate to see people alienated. And yeah, so people used to tell me I had a good heart. Haven't heard it in a while. But no, I know I have a good heart. I actually quit my job. I spent, almost 20 years teaching. And I quit my job. It was time to, do something different. I can tell you've been there. Yeah. 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 It was time to do something different. It was time to actually start using, I not only use my experience, but my craft. Like, I have studied this stuff. I have it made it my mission, to help people. And so, I had to become well studied and well read and stuff, and I, took time to hone my craft so that I could help people, not just the children. What I found, I worked in an area that was very, they didn't really value education. And so, I found myself kind of like that scripture in the Bible that talks about casting your pearls before the swine. If you cast your beautiful, gorgeous pearls, to some pigs, the only thing they're going to do is trample on them, because they don't want that. They don't value it. And so I found myself in that situation many times. But now I'm able to work with whoever wants to work with me. I'm able to work with people who value what I have to give. So, yeah. All right, guys, Bunchy and everyone else, I am going to hop off of here. Thank you so much for joining me. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's more than an ocean, Bunchy. It is more than an ocean. All right, thanks for joining me. Don't forget to share. Go over to divadubay.com, get those resources, and sign up for the webinar. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Bye-bye.